Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Before they were stars, new image shows Space Nursery. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. The stars we see today weren't always as serene as they appear. Floating alone in the dark of night, most stars, likely including our sun, grew up in the cosmic turmoil, as illustrated in a new image from NASA's Spicer Space Telescope. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:56 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The image shows one of the most active and turbulent regions of star birth in our galaxy, a region called Cygnus X. The choppy cloud of gas and dust lies 4,500 light-years away in the constellation Cygnus the Swan. Cygnus X was named by radio astronomers since it is one of the brightest radio regions in the Milky Way. It should not be confused with the black hole Cygnus X-1. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Cygnus X, which spans an area of the sky larger than 100 full moons, is home to thousands of massive stars and many more stars around the size of our sun or smaller. Spicer has captured an infrared view of the entire region, which is bubbling with star formation. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Spicer captured the range of activities happening in this violent cloud of stellar birth. Harvard Smithson Center for Astrophysics, who is the principal investigator of the research. We see bubbles carved out from massive stars, pillars of new stars, dark filaments lined with stellar embryos, and more. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:59 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The majority of stars are thought to form in huge star-forming regions, like Cygnus X. Over time, the stars dissipate and migrate away from each other. It is possible that our sun was once packed tightly together with other, more massive stars in a similar, chaotic, though less extreme region. The turbulent star-forming clouds are marked with bubbles, or cavities, which are carved by radiation and winds from the most massive of stars. Those massive stars tear the cloud material to shreds, terminating the formation of some stars while triggering the birth of others. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. One of the questions we want to answer is how such a violent process can lead to both the death and the birth of new stars. We still don't know exactly how stars from in such disruptive environments. Infrared data from Spicer is helping to answer questions like these by giving astronomers a window into the dustier parts of the complex. Infrared light travels through dust, whereas visible light is blocked. For example, embryonic stars blanked by dust pop out in the Spicer observations. In some cases, the young stars are embedded in finger-shaped pillars of dust, which line the hollowed-out cavities and point toward the central mass of stars. In other cases, these stars can be seen lining very dark, snake-like filaments of thick dust. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Another question scientists hope to answer is how these pillars and filaments are related. We have evidence that the massive stars are triggering the birth of the new ones in the dark filaments, in addition to the pillars, but we still have more work to do. The biggest results from this survey are yet to come. Infrared light in this image have been color-coded according to wavelength. Light of 3.6 microns is blue, 4.5 micron light is blue-green, 8.0 micron light is green, and 24 micron light is red. These data were taken before the Spicer mission ran out of its coolant in 2009 and began its warm mission. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Quick cooking nanomaterials in microwave to make tomorrow's air conditioners. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. Engineering researchers at the Polytechnic Institute have developed a new method for creating advanced nanomaterials that could lead to highly efficient refrigerators and cooling systems requiring no refrigerants and no moving parts. The key ingredients for this innovation are a dash of nanoscale sulfur and a normal everyday microwave oven. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:20 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. At the heart of these solid-state cooling systems are thermoelectric materials, which can convert electricity into a range of different temperatures from hot to cold. Thermoelectric refrigerators employing these principles have been available for more than 20 years, but they are still small and highly inefficient. This is largely because the materials used in current thermoelectric cooling devices are inexpensive and difficult to make in large quantities, and do not have the necessary combination of thermal and electric properties. A new study recently published in the Journal of Nature Materials overcomes these challenges and opens the door to a new generation of high-performance, cost-effective, solid-state refrigeration and air conditioning. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:26 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Driving this research breakthrough is the idea of intentionally contaminating or doping nanostructured thermoelectric materials with barely their amounts of sulfur. The dope materials are obtained by cooking the material and the dopant together for a few minutes in a store-bought $40 microwave oven. The resulting powder is formed into pea-sized pellets by applying heat and pressure in a way that preserves the properties endowed by the nanostructuring and the doping. These pellets exhibit properties better than the hard-to-make thermoelectric materials currently available in the marketplace. Additionally, this new method for creating the doped pellets is much faster, easier, and cheaper than conventional methods of making thermoelectric materials. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This is not a one-off discovery. We have developed and demonstrated a new way to create a whole new class of doped thermoelectric materials with superior properties. Our findings truly hold the potential to transform the technology landscape of refrigeration and make a real impact on our lives. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Here is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:32 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Trying to engineer thermoelectric materials is somewhat like playing a game of tug-of-war. Researchers endeavor to control the separate properties of thermal material, electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and Seebeck coefficient. Manipulating one of these properties, however, necessarily affects the other two. This new study demonstrates a new way to minimize the interdependence of these three properties by combining doping and nanostructuring in well-known thermoelectric materials such as tellurides, selenides based on bismuth and antimony. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:33 a.m. Eastern Time. The goal of tweaking these three properties is to create a thermoelectric material with a high figure of merit, or a ZT, which is a measure of how efficient the material is at converting heat to electricity. The new pea-sized pellets of nanomaterials developed by the team demonstrated a ZT of 1 to 1.1 at room temperature. Since such high values are obtained even without optimizing the process, the researchers are confident that the higher ZT can be obtained with some smart engineering. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It is really amazing as how nanostructures seasoned with just a few atoms of sulfur can lead to such superior thermoelectric properties of the bulk material made from the nanostructures. It allows us to reap the benefits of nanostructuring on a microscale. An important facet of the discovery is the ability to make both P-type positive charge and N-type negative charge. Thermoelectric nanomaterials with a high ZT. Up until now, researchers around the world have only been able to make large quantities of P-type materials with high ZT. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Additionally, the new study shows that the research team can make batches of 10 to 15 grams, enough to make several pea-sized pellets of the doped nanomaterial in 2 to 3 minutes with a microwave oven. Larger quantities can be produced using industrial-sized microwave ovens. Our ability to scalably and inexpensively produce both P and N-type materials with a high ZT paves the way to the fabrication of high-efficient cooling devices, as well as a solid-state thermoelectric device for harvesting waste, heat, or solar heat into electricity. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This is a very exciting discovery because it combines the realization of novel and useful thermoelectric properties with a demonstrated processing route forward to industrial applications. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Beyond refrigerators and air conditioning, the researchers envision this technology could one day be used to cool computer chips. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. E.I. Gorda Flat Distant Galaxy Cluster. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. An extremely hot, massive young galaxy cluster, the largest ever seen in the distant universe, has been studied by an international team using ESO Very Large Telescope VLT in Atacama Desert in Chile, along with NASA Condor X-ray Observatory and Atacama Cosmology Telescope. The new results are being announced on 10th January 2012 at the 219th meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Austin, Texas. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The newly discovered galaxy cluster 1 has been nicknamed E.I. Gorda, the big or flat one in Spanish, It consists of two separate galaxy subclusters colliding at several million kilometers per hour, and is so far away that its light has traveled 7 billion years to reach Earth. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:54 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This cluster is the most massive, the hottest, and gives off the most X-ray of any cluster found so far at this distance or beyond. We devoted a lot of our observing time Io Gorda, and I'm glad our bet paid off and we found an amazing cluster collision. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 3:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Clusters of galaxies are the largest objects in the universe, held together by gravity. The process of their formation, when smaller groups of galaxies merge together, very much depends on the amount of dark matter and dark energy in the universe at that time. So studying clusters can shed some light on these mysterious components of the cosmos. Gigantic galaxy clusters like this one are just what we were aiming to find. We want to see if we understand how these extreme objects form using the best models of cosmology that are currently available. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 4:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The team of astronomers go to detecting distortion of the cosmic microwave background radiation. This faint glow and the remnant of the first light from the Big Bang, extremely hot and dense origin of the universe about 13.7 billion years ago. This radiation left over the Big Bang interacts with electrons in the hot gas in the galaxy clusters, distorting the appearance of the background glow seen from Earth 2. This denser and bigger the cluster, the bigger the effect, was picked up by the survey of the microwave background with the Atacama Cosmology Telescope. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 4:09 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. ESO Very Large Telescope was used by the team to measure the velocities of the galaxies in the huge cluster collision, and also to measure its distance from Earth. In addition, NASA Condra X-ray Observatory was used to study the hot gas in the cluster. Although a cluster of Io Gorda size and distance is very rare, the authors say that the new results are still consistent with astronomers currently understanding a universe that started with the Big Bang and is mostly made of dark matter and dark energy. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 4:11 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A spectacular interacting cluster of galaxies that is almost 4 billion light-years close to the Earth. In both clusters, there is evidence that normal matter, mainly composed of hot X-ray bright gas, has been wrenched apart from the dark matter. The hot gas was slowed down by a collision, but the dark matter was not. This is the first time we found a system like the bullet cluster at such a large distance. It is like the old saying, if you want to understand where you are going, you have to know where you've been. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 4:12 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Notes. Number 1. The formal name of the cluster ACT CL J01024915. The first part of the name shows that it is a galaxy cluster found using data from an Atacama Cosmology Telescope, and the second part indicates the location of the object on the sky in the southern constellation of Onyx. Number 2. The effect is called the SZ effect after the Russian astronomers. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 4:14 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Number 3. The Atacama Cosmology Telescope ACT is a 6-meter telescope on Sierra Toca in the Atacama Desert in the north of Chile, close to the site at Alma. It is designed to make high-resolution surveys of the microwave sky to study the cosmic microwave background radiation. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 9:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Direct links found between climate change, elk, plants, and birds. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. Climate change in the form of reduced snowfall and mountains is causing powerful and cascading shifts in mountainous plant and bird communities, though the increased ability of elk to stay at high elevations over winter and consume plants, according to a groundbreaking study in Nature Climate Change. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:33 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The U.S. Geological Survey and University of Montana study not only showed that the abundance of deciduous trees and their associated songbirds in mountainous Arizona have declined over the last 22 years, as snowpack has declined, but it also experimentally demonstrated that declining snowfall indirectly affects plants and birds by enabling more winter browsing by elk. Increased winter browsing by elk results in trickle-down ecological effects such as lowering the quality of habitat for songbirds. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The author is USGS Montana Cooperative Wildlife Research Unit. Scientist Thomas Martin and University of Montana scientist John Marin mimicked the effects of more snow on limiting the ability of elk to browse on plants by excluding the animals from large fenced areas. They compared bird and plant communities in these exclusion areas with nearby similar areas where elk had access and found that over the 6 years of the study, multi-decadal declines in plant and songbird populations were reversed in the areas where elk were produced from browsing. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:36 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This study illustrates that profound impacts of climate change on ecosystems arise over a time span of but 2 decades through unexplored feedbacks. Unexplained USGS Director, the significance lies in the fact that humans and our economy are at the end of the same chain of cascading consequences. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:38 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The study demonstrates a classical ecological cascade. Added, Martin, for example, he said, from an elk's perspective, less snow means an increased ability to freely browse on woody plants in winter in areas where they would not be inclined to forage in previous times due to high snowpack. Increase over winter browsing led to a decline in deciduous trees, which reduced the number of birds that chose the habitat and increased predation on nests of those birds that did choose the habitat. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:39 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This study demonstrates that the indirect effects of climate on plant communities may be just as important as the effects of climate change-induced mismatch between migrating birds and food abundances, because plants, including trees, provide the habitat birds need to survive. Today is Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Thursday, January 12, 2012, 11:57 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Touching a nerve, how every hair in the skin feels, touch and how it all gets to the brain. Science Daily, January 11, 2012. Neuroscientists at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine have discovered how the sense of touch is wired in the skin and nervous system. The new findings, published December 22nd in Cell, open new doors for understanding how the brain collects and processes information from hairy skin. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Thursday, January 12, 2012, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. You can reflect a single hair on your arm and feel it. But how can you tell the difference between a raindrop, a light breeze, or a poke of a stick? Touch is not yes or no. It is very rich, and now we are starting to understand how all those inputs are processed. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Indians call a study how the nervous system develops and is wired, and trying to understand how touch-responsive nerve cells develop. They set out to build new tools that enable them to look at individual nerve cells. According to Ginty, there are more than 20 broad classes of so-called mechanosensory nerve cells in the skin, of which only 6 account for light touch that sense everything from temperature to pain. But until now, the only way to tell one cell from another was to take electrical recordings, as each type of cell generates a different current based on what it senses. Today is Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The team first genetically engineered mice to make a fluorescent protein in one type of nerve cell, called the C-type low-threshold mechanosensory receptor, or CLTMR. CLTMR cells stretch from one spinal cord to the skin, and those cells containing fluorescent protein could be seen in their entirety under a microscope. The team found that each CLTMR cell branched to send projections to as many as 30 different hair follicles. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Mice have 3 different types of hair: a thick, long guard hair that accounts for only about 1% of total hair on the body, a shorter hair called the AWL that constitutes about 23% of the body hair, and a fine hair called the zigzag that makes up 76% of body hair. The team found that most of the CLTMR cell endings, about 80%, associate with zigzag hair follicles, the rest with the AWL, and none with the guard hair follicles. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The research then similarly marked to other types of touch nerve cells and found that each hair type has a different and specific set of nerve endings associated with it. This makes every hair a unique echinosensory organ. Moreover, with their new marking tools, they found that each hair type is evenly spaced and patterned throughout the skin. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:09 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The team then wondered how all the input from these individual hairs is collected and sent to the brain. Using a different dyeing technique, the researchers were able to stain the other end of the cell. In the spinal cord, they found that the nerve is connecting each patch of skin containing one guard hair, and other associated smaller hairs line up in columns to the spinal cord. Neighboring columns correspond to neighboring patches of skin. They estimate that there are about 3,000 to 5,000 columns in the spinal cord, with each column accounting for 100 to 150 hair follicles. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:11 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. So how does the brain interpret what each hair follicle experiences? How this happens is remarkable, and we are fairly clueless about it. But he suspects that the organization of the columns is key to how all the various inputs are processed before a message goes to the brain. And while people are not as hairy as mice, he believes that many of the same structures are shared. This study and the new cell marking tools they developed open a lot of doors for new research in understanding touch and other senses. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Blue is typically an indicator of hot, young stars. In this case, however, the stellar oddities are aging. Sun-like stars that have prematurely cast off their outer layers of material, exposing their extremely blue-hot cores. Astronomers were surprised when they spotted these stars because physical models show that only an unusual type of old star can be as hot, as bright, in ultraviolet light. And good day's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. While Hubble was spied these ultra-blue stars before in Andromeda, the new observation covers a much broader area, revealing that these stellar misfits are scattered throughout the galaxy's bustling center. Astronomers use Hubble Wide Field Camera 3 to find roughly 8,000 of the ultra-blue stars where the stellar sense made in ultraviolet light, which traces the glow of the hottest stars. The study is part of a multi-year Pan-Chromatic Hubble Andromeda Treasury Survey to map stellar populations across the Andromeda Galaxy. And good day's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We were not looking for these stars. They stood out because they were bright in ultraviolet light and were very different from stars we expected to see. The team's results are being presented January 11th at the American Astronomical Society meeting in Austin, Texas. And good day's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The telescope spied the stars within 2,600 light-years of Andromeda's core. After analyzing the stars for nearly a year, Delcanton's team determined that they were well past their prime. The stars are dimmer and have a range of surface temperature different from the extremely bright stars we see in the star-forming regions of Andromeda. And good day's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. As these stars evolve, puffing up to become red giants, they ejected most of their outer layers to expose their blue-hot cores. When normal sun-like stars swell up to become red giants, they lose much less material and therefore never look as bright in the ultraviolet. And good day's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:41 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We count these stars when they are in the brightest, just before they become white dwarfs. Observatory in Purdue, it is likely that there are many other similarly hot stars in the central part of Andromeda at earlier stages of their lives. But such stars are too dim for Hubble to see because they are mixed in with a crowd of normal stars. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The astronomers have proposed two possible scenarios to explain why these blue stars evolve differently. According to Rosenfield, the most likely scenarios is that the stars are rich in chemical elements other than hydrogen and helium. Observations with ground-based telescopes have shown the stars in the galaxy hub have an abundant supply of heavy elements, which makes it easier for stars to eject lots of material into space, light, and life. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In this scenario, radiation from the star is more efficient at pushing on gas laced with heavy elements, which drives away the material. Like when moving a thick sail, although all the stars in the core are enriched in heavy elements, the bright blue stars may contain especially high amounts, which help trigger the massive loss. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The study also shows that the number of blue stars decreases with distance from the core, tracing the drop in the amount of heavy elements. Another possible explanation is that the blue stars are in close binary systems and have lost mass in their partners. This mass loss would expose the star's hot cores. Astronomers were surprised to find that the ultra-blue stars are distributed in the galaxy in the same way as population of binary stars with similar masses that were found in X-ray observations by NASA Condra X-ray Observatory. Astronomers' next step is to create simulations of these stars to try to determine which scenario is the one that leads them on a different evolutionary path. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:50 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Southern-like ring system eclipses. Sun-like star. Science Daily, January 9, 2012. A team of astrophysicists from the University of Rochester in Europe has discovered a ring system in the constellation Centaurus that invites comparisons to Saturn. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:51 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The basic concept of the research is straightforward. Imagine yourself sitting in the park on a sunny afternoon, and a softball passes between you and the sun. The intensity of the light from the sun would appear to weaken for just a moment. Then a bird then flies by, causing an intensity of the sunlight to again weaken, more or less than it did for the baseball, depending on the size of the bird and how long it took to pass. That's the principle that allowed the researchers to discover a cosmic ring system. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:54 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The light curve is a graph of light intensity over time, and one star in particular showed dramatic changes during a 54-day period in early 2007. When I first saw the light curve, I knew we had found a very weird and unique object. After we ruled out the eclipse being due to the spherical star or circumstellar disk passing in front of the star, I realized that the only plausible explanation was some sort of dust ring system orbiting a smaller explanation, basically a Saturn on steroids. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 12:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. If a spherical object merely passed in front of a star, the intensity of light would gradually dim and reach a low point, before gradually increasing. That was not the case with the star identified as 1S WASP, J1407447.93 The Rochester team discovered a long, deep, and complex eclipse event with significant on and off dimming. At the deepest parts of the eclipse, at least 95% of the light from the star was being blocked by dust. And good day, this is Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The shape of the light curve was very similar to that of a well-researched star, EE Cephei, suggesting similar traits in the companion objects. However, EE Cephei differs in that it appears to be a thick protoplanetary disk transiting or passing in front of a massive hot star. We suspect this new star is being eclipsed by a low-mass object with an orbiting disk that has multiple thin rings of debris. The star is similar in mass to that sun, but is much younger, about 16 million years old, and 1/300th of the age of the solar system, and it lies about 420 light years away. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This marks the first time astronomers have detected an extrasolar ring system transiting a sun-like star, and the first system is discrete thin dust rings detected around a very low-mass object outside of our solar system. But many questions remain about what exactly has been discovered. He says the object at the center of the ring system is either a very low-mass star, brown dwarf, or planet. The answer lies in the object's mass. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Colleagues will be proposing to use southern hemisphere telescopes to obtain radial velocity data for the star to detect the gravitational tug of the companion, and conduct non-redundant mass imaging experiments to try to detect light from the fainter companion. The observations will help calculate the companion mass, which in turn will help determine its identity. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Interested in what taking place in the two pronounced gaps located between the rings. Gaps usually indicate the presence of objects with enough mass to gravitationally sculpt the ring edges. And the team thinks it could be either observing the late stages of planet formation if the transiting object is a star or brown dwarf, or possibly moon formation if the transiting object is a giant planet. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. If the dusty rings are similar to Saturn's in terms of their masses per optical depth, then the total mass of the rings is only on the order of the mass of Earth's moon. The orbital radius of the outermost ring is tens of millions of kilometers. So the mass and size of the ring system is substantially heftier than the Saturn's ring system, and the discovery paper, the 4 rings detected thus far, have been dubbed. And Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time. Click now. With several questions still to answer. Researchers consider the paper to be the progress report. He expects it will take at least a couple more years to piece everything together. However, will future all-sky monitoring surveys, like the proposed large synoptic survey telescope being built in Chile. Researchers expect that rare eclipses of young stars by moon-forming disks and large ring systems around young giant planets will be detectable over many years of searching. Following up, observations of such eclipses may provide our first observational constraints on the formation of an early evolution of moon-around gas planets. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Click now. Disruption of biological clocks can lead to neurodegeneration, early death studies suggest. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. New research at the Oregon State University provides evidence for the first time that disruption of circadian rhythms, the biological clocks found in many animals, can clearly cause accelerated neurodegeneration, loss of motor function, and premature death. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:21 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The study was published in Neurobiology of Disease and done by researchers at OSU, an Oregon Health and Science University. Prior to this, it was clear which came first, whether the disruption of biological clock mechanisms was the cause or the result of neurodegeneration. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:21 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In these experiments, we showed through both environmental and genetic approaches that disrupting the biological clock accelerated these health problems. There is a great deal of interest right now in studies on circadian rhythms, as we learn more about the range of problems that can result when they are disrupted. Ultimately, we hope that this research will be taken from the laboratory to the bedside. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:23 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. These studies were done with fruit flies, but the OSU scientists had previous research has indicated there are close parallels between them and humans. Some of the genes regulating circadian rhythms in flies are so important that they have been preserved through millions of years of separate evolution and still do the same thing in humans. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:24 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The biological clock in humans and many other animals is a complex genetic mechanism tuned to 24-hour day and regular cycles of light, dark, and sleep. It influences a wide range of biological processes from fertility to hormone production, feeding patterns, DNA repair, sleep, stress, reactions, even the effectiveness of medications. In humans, researchers have found strong correlations between disrupted clock mechanisms, aging, and neurological diseases, such as Alzheimer's and Huntington's disease. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The fruit flies used in this research carry two mutations, one that disrupts circadian rhythms and another that causes flies to develop brain pathologies during aging. These double mutants had a 32-50% shorter lifespan, lost much of their motor function, and developed significant vacuoles or holes in their brains far sooner than flies with a functional clock. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:32 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The decline and loss of clock function may be just the beginning of the damaging circular process. When the biological clock begins to fail, rhythms that regulate cell function and health get disrupted. And we now know that this predisposes the brain of neurodegeneration. But that neurodegeneration in turn may cause more damage to the clock function. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A healthy biological clock helps protect against this damage. When the clock fails, the damage processes speed up. Aging is closely associated with this process. But it is not clear exactly how molecular clock oscillations decline during aging. Finding ways to restore them might form a possible therapy for biological clock damage and help to prevent disease. And work in that area will be part of future research. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Astronomers find three smallest planets outside solar system. Science Daily, January 11, 2012. A team of astronomers led by scientists at the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, has discovered the three smallest confirmed planets ever detected outside our solar system. The three planets, which all orbit a single star, are smaller than Earth and appear to be rocky with a solid surface. Until now, astronomers have found at most only 4 other rocky planets, also called terrestrial planets, around other stars. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:39 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The trio of new planets is too close to a central star to be in its habitable zone. The ring-shaped regional around the star where the temperature is mild enough for liquid water and possibly life to exist. But the planets are the first rocky ones to be found orbiting a type of dip, smaller star called the red dwarf, the most common kind in the Milky Way. Their existence suggests that the galaxy could be teeming with similarly rocky planets, and that there's a good chance that many are in the habitable zone. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:42 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The red dwarf called the KOI 961 was first flagged as a potential planetary system by Kepler mission on space telescope that looks for planets around sun-like stars by scanning the sky for stars that periodically dip in brightness. The result of one or more planets passing in front of them. Although Kepler reported 900 potentially planetary systems in February, only about 85 of those were red dwarf systems. The fact that the relatively small sample of red dwarfs produced 3 terrestrial planets means that either the Caltech-led team was really lucky, or more likely that these planets are commonly found around red dwarfs. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. When you combine that with the fact that these are some of the most numerous stars in the galaxy, you realize this type of system could be common. There is no question that it is exciting. The research paper describing the discovery, which has been accepted by the Astrophysical Journal, the team will also present their results in the talks on January 11th at the meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Austin, Texas. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:46 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Red dwarfs make up 8 out of every 10 stars in the galaxy. That boosts the chances of other life being in the universe. That's the ultimate result here. If these planets are as common as they appear, and because red dwarfs themselves are so common, then the whole galaxy must be just swarming with little habitable planets around faint red stars. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:49 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This report comes just a few weeks after the Kepler team announced it had detected 2 rocky planets around a sun-like star, Kepler-20 and Kepler-20f, the first Earth-sized planets ever found and the smallest known at the time. In January 2011, the Kepler team reported the discovery of the first unequivocally rocky planet around another star, Kepler-10b, another planet, and Caret 7b, which was found in the 2009, could also be a rocky planet. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:53 a.m. Eastern Time. With the exception of Kepler-20e, which is about the size of Venus, the other previously discovered planets are all bigger than Earth. All 3 of the ones found by the Caltech team are smaller than the outermost. One is about half the size of Earth, similar to Mars, and the other 2 are 3/4 the size of Earth, smaller than Venus. In fact, the entire KOI-961 planetary system is remarkably tiny. KOI-961 has a diameter of 1/6 that of the Sun's, making it just 70% bigger than Jupiter. Each of the 3 planets needs less than 2 days to zip around their stars, and all 3 are about 100 times closer to that of the star than Earth is to the Sun. And because they are so close to the star, they are hot. The outermost planet is estimated to be about 200 degrees Celsius, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, while the innermost planet is a scoring 500 degrees Celsius, more than 900 degrees Fahrenheit. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:56 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Kepler initial measurements, which are automated to help it sift through roughly 150,000 stars, underestimated the size of KOI-961 and many planets it might have had. No one had realized this until amateur astronomer had paper co-author Kevin Elps altered the research, and the idea of KOI-961 bore a remarkable resemblance to another red dwarf called Barnard star, a nearby star that's one of the most well-studied. That's what blew the case wide open. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 1:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. When the astronomers used telescopes at the Palomar and Keck observatories to take a closer look at the both stars, they found that the 2 stars are practically twins. The characteristics of the Barnard star allowed their team to infer properties of KOI-961, which is needed to deduce the nature of the planetary system from the star's light curve, a plot of how the stars dim over time due to transiting planets, in particular the depth of the light curve. That is, how much the curve dips reveals the planet sizes. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 2:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Because the planets are so small, the only way they could have enough gravity to hold themselves together is if they are balls of rock. Just 3 years ago, just talking about a rocky planet would have been pure speculation, but these are unambiguously rocky. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 2:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: still before they could make any conclusions, the researchers had to confirm that the dip in light detected by Kepler really were due to planets, and not something else, such as a pair of background stars in orbit around each other. To do so, they turned to old photographs taken by the Palmer Observatory, 48 Samuel Telescope in 1951, because KOI 961 is relatively close, about 130 light years away, but appears to drift across the sky relatively quickly, so that a photo taken in 1951 would allow and show it in different locations than the current image would. By comparing pictures of KOI 961 over the years, astronomers can check whether there are any stars behind it that could produce the light dips they saw. They found none. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 2:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: instead of a planetary system, the dips could also be caused by stars in orbit around each other. But the researchers analyzed the statistics of such a scenario and found that it is very unlikely. Combining these statistics results with the observations that show a lack of background stars. The astronomers conclude that the light dips from KOI 961 are indeed produced by three small terrestrial planets. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 2:56 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: clues as to why alcohol is addicting. Scientists show that drinking releases brain endorphins. Science Daily, January 11, 2012. Drinking alcohol leads to the release of endorphins in areas of the brain that produces feelings of pleasure and reward, according to the study. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the findings marks the first time that endorphin release in the nucleus accumbens and orbitofrontal cortex in response to alcohol consumption has been directly observed in humans. Endorphins are small proteins with opiate-like effects that are produced naturally in the brain. This is something we've speculated about for 30 years, based on animal studies, but haven't observed in humans until now. It provides the first direct evidence of how alcohol makes people feel good. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the discovery of the precise locations of the brain where endorphins are released provides a possible target for the development of more effective drugs for the treatment of alcohol abuse. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the researchers use position emission tomography, or PET imaging, to observe the immediate effect of alcohol in the brain of 13 heavy drinkers and 12 match control subjects who were not heavy drinkers. In all of the subjects, alcohol intake led to the release of endorphins. And in all of the subjects, the more endorphins released in the nucleus accumbens, the greater the feelings of pleasure reported by each drinker. In addition, the more endorphins released in the orbitofrontal cortex, the greater the feelings of intoxication in the heavy drinkers, but not in the control subjects. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:04 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: this indicates that the brain of heavy or protein drinkers are changed in a way that makes them more likely to find alcohol pleasant, and may be a clue to how problem drinking develops in the first place. That greater feeling of reward might cause them to drink too much. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: results suggest a possible approach to treat alcohol abuse. Before drinking, the subjects were given injections of radioactivity tagged carfentanil, an opiate-like drug that selectively binds to sites in the brain called opiate receptors, where endorphins also bind. As the radioactive carfentanil was bound and emitted radiation, the receptor sites lit up on PET imaging, allowing the researchers to map their exact locations. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: the subjects were then each given a drink of alcohol, followed by a second injection of radioactive carfentanil, and scanned again with PET imaging. As with the natural endorphins released by drinking were bound to the apoid receptor sites, they prevented the carfentanil from being bound by comparing areas of radioactivity in the first and second PET images. The researchers were able to map the exact locations, areas of lower radioactivity, where endorphins were released in response to drinking. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: the researchers found that endorphins released in response to drinking bind to a specific type of apoid receptor, the mu receptor. This results suggests that a possible approach to improving the efficiency of treatment for alcohol abuse through the design of better medications than naltrexone. Fields explain that naltrexone, which prevents binding at apoid receptor sites, is not widely accepted as a treatment for alcohol dependence, not because it isn't effective at reducing drinking, but because some people stop taking it because they don't like the way it makes them feel. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today's Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:12 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: naltrexone blocks more than one apoid receptor, and we need to know which blocking action reduces drinking and which causes the unwanted side effects. If we better understand how endorphins control drinking, we will have a better chance of creating more targeted therapies for substance addiction. This paper is a significant step in that direction because it specifically implicates the mu-apoid receptor in alcohol reward in humans. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, dates Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: planets with double suns are common. Science Daily, January 11, 2012. Astronomers using NASA Kepler mission have discovered 2 new circumbinary planet systems, planets that orbit 2 stars. Their find, which brings the number of known circumbinary planets to 3, show that planets with 2 suns must be common, with many millions existing in our galaxy. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:20 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: the 2 new planets named Kepler-34b and Kepler-35b are both gaseous Saturn-sized planets. Kepler-34 orbits its 2 sun-like stars every 289 days, and the stars themselves orbit each other every 28 days. Kepler-35b revolves around a pair of smaller stars, 80 and 89% of the sun's masses, every 131 days, and the stars orbit one another every 21 days. Both systems reside in the constellation Cygnus, the Swan, with Kepler-34 located 4,900 light-years from Earth, and Kepler-35 at a distance of 5,400 light-years. Today's Dr. Will, CBND, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:22 a.m. Eastern Time. Circumbinary planets have 2 suns, not just one, and due to the orbital motion of the stars, the amount of energy the planet receives varies greatly. This changing energy flow could produce wildly varying climates. It would be like cycling through all 4 seasons many times per year, with huge temperature changes. The effects of these climate swings on the atmospheric dynamics and ultimately on the evolution of life on habitable circumbinary planets is a fascinating topic that we are all just beginning to explore. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:24 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: the Kepler team announced the first circumbinary planet, Kepler-16, last September, like Kepler-16b. These new planets also transit eclipses, their host stars, which is how Kepler spotted them. When only Kepler-16b was known, many questions remained about the nature of the circumbinary planets. Most importantly, was it a fluke? The discovery of these 2 new worlds, astronomers can now answer many of those questions as they begin to study an entirely new class of planets. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:25 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: it was once believed that the environment around a pair of stars would be too chaotic for a circumbinary planet to form. But now that we have confirmed 3 such planets, we know that it is possible, if not probable, that there are at least millions in the galaxy. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:31 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: world's smallest vertebrate, tiny frogs discovered in New Guinea. Science Daily, January 11, 2012. LSU, Chris Austin, recently discovered 2 new species of frogs in New Guinea, one of which is now the world's tiniest known vertebrate, averaging only 7.7 millimeters in size, less than 1/3 of an inch. It's Hadiocyprus progenetica, an Indonesia fish averaging more than 8 millimeters. From the record, Austin leading to a team of scientists from the United States, including LSU graduate student Erica Rittmeyer, made the discovery during the 3-month-long expedition to the island of New Guinea, the world's largest and tallest tropical island. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: it was particularly difficult to locate Radioviren amanuensis due to its diminutive size and the male's high-pitched insect-like mating call. But it is a great find. New Guinea is a hotspot of biodiversity, and everything new we discover there adds another layer to our overall understanding of how biodiversity is generated and maintained. Austin, curator of herpetology at the LSU Museum of Natural Science and associate professor of biological sciences, is no stranger to discovering new species, having described numerous species previously unknown to science, including frogs, lizards, and parasites. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: the research, which will be published in PLOS ONE on the January 11, includes a second species of diminutive frog newly named Radioviren swiftorum that is only slightly larger than Radioviren amanuensis, averaging only about 8.5 millimeters in body size. Austin's work, supported by the National Science Foundation, highlights an interesting trend among the discovery of extremely small vertebrates. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Note: The size limit of vertebrates or creatures with backbones is of considerable interest to biologists because little is understood about the functional constraints that come with extreme body size, whether large or small. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, case Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:37 a.m. Eastern Time. With more than 60,000 vertebrates currently known to man, the largest being the blue whale with an average size of more than 25 meters, 75 feet, and the smallest previously being the small Indonesian fish averaging around 8 millimeters. There was originally some thought that extreme size of vertebrates might be associated with aquatic species, as perhaps the buoyancy offers support and facilitates the development of extremism. However, both new species and frogs, Austin described as terrestrial, suggesting that living in water is not necessarily for a small body size. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 3:38 a.m. Eastern Time. The ecosystems these extremely small frogs occupy are very similar, primarily inhabiting leaf-like litter on the floor of tropical rainforest environments. We now believe that these creatures aren't just biological oddities, but instead represent a previously undocumented ecological guide. They occupy a habitat niche that no other vertebrate does. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:06 a.m. Eastern Time. When galaxy clusters collide, collision could help astronomers better understand dark matter. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. A UC Davis graduate student who is leading a study of the collision of galaxy clusters 5 billion light years away will discuss the team's finding January 10 at the annual meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Austin, Texas. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:08 a.m. Eastern Time. A galaxy cluster is like a little universe because it has the same matter composition as the whole universe. By studying this little universe, we can learn more about our own. This little universe is formally called DLSCL J0916.2 plus 2951 and consists of two clusters of hundreds of galaxies each in the process of merging into one. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Perry's cluster compromises about 86% dark matter, 12% superheated gas, and 2% actual stars. Those proportions are similar to the distribution of mass in the universe as a whole. Dark matter is thought to interact very little, if at all, with regular matter and does not emit light, but it does exert a gravitational pull on light passing through and near it, distorting the image of distant objects, rather like looking through the bottom of a glass bottle. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:12 a.m. Eastern Time. And with the Hubble, Sabara, and Mayall telescopes, the researchers mapped the dark matter by observing distortions in light passing through the cluster from more distant objects, a method called weak gravitational lensing. The map revealed that the two galaxy clusters within Perry's cluster had passed through each other. The spaces between the galaxies within the cluster are so vast that the actual collisions are unlikely, and that most of the dark matter also had passed through without collision. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Not so with the gas clouds. They had collided and become stuck between the clusters, making a huge cloud of gas 1,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun. Because these mergers separate the various matter components of the cluster, they provide astronomers with dissection of the cosmos that would otherwise be impossible. By comparing and contrasting the behavior of the dark matter to that of the galaxies and gas in the merging cluster, physicists can rule out some theories about dark matter's properties. The energy of these merging clusters is incomprehensibly large, a million times bigger than a supernova. Only a handful have been studied to date. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:15 a.m. Eastern Time. The cluster is the most advanced of these merging clusters yet seen. Dawson said, every great advance in our understanding of the physical world is a direct result of understanding how things change with time. So the hope is that by observing clusters at different stages of merging, astronomers can gain insight into the physics involved. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:26 a.m. Eastern Time. NASA's Hubble break new ground with distant supernova discovery. Science Daily, January 11, 2012. NASA Hubble Space Telescope has looked deep into the distant universe and detected a feeble glow of a star that exploded more than 9 billion years ago. The sighting is the first finding of an ambitious survey that will help astronomers place better constraints on the nature of dark energy, the mysterious repulsive force that is causing the universe to fly apart ever faster. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:27 a.m. Eastern Time. For decades, astronomers have harnessed the power of Hubble to unravel the mysteries of the universe. This new observation builds upon the revolutionary research using Hubble that won astronomers the 2011 Nobel Prize in Physics, while bringing us a step closer to understanding the nature of dark energy which drives the cosmic acceleration. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD, tapes Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The stellar explosion, nicknamed SN Primo, belongs to a special class called the type LA supernova, which are bright beacons used as distant markers for studying the expansion rate of the universe. Type LA supernova likely arise when white dwarf stars that burn out the cores of normal stars, siphon too much material from their companion stars, and explode. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. SN Primo is the farthest type of LA supernova, with its distance confirmed through spectroscopic observations. In these types of observations, the spectrum splits the light from the supernova into its constituent colors. By analyzing those colors, astronomers can confirm its distance by measuring how much the supernova light has been stretched, or redshift into near-infrared wavelengths because of the expansion of the universe. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:31 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The supernova was discovered as part of the 3-year Hubble program to survey faraway type LA supernova, opening a new distance realm for searching for this special class of stellar explosion. The remote supernova will help astronomers determine whether the exploding stars remain dependable cosmic yardsticks across the vast distance of space in an epoch when the cosmos was only one-third its current age of 13.7 billion years. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:32 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Called the Candles Plus Class Supernova Project, the census uses the sharpness and versatility of Hubble Wide Field Camera 3 WFC3 to assist astronomers in the search for supernova near infrared light and verify their distance with spectroscopy. Candles is the cosmic assembly, near-infrared deep extragalactic legacy survey, and Clash into cluster lensing a supernova survey with Hubble. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In our research for supernova, we had gone as far as we could go in optical light, said Adams, the project lead investigator of the Space Telescope Science Institute and Johns Hopkins University of Baltimore, MD, but is only the beginning of what we can do in infrared light. This discovery demonstrates that we can use the Wide Field Camera 3 to search for supernova in the distant universe. The new results were presented on January 11th at the American Astronomical Society meeting in Austin, Texas. And today is Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The supernova team has searched for technique involved in taking multiple near-infrared images over several months, looking for a supernova's faint glow. After the team spotted the stellar blast of October 2010, they used WSC3's spectrometer to verify SN Primo's distance and to decode its light. Finding the unique signature in type LA supernova, the team then re-imaged SN Primo periodically for 8 months, measuring the slow dimming of its light. And today is Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. By taking the census, the astronomers hope to determine the frequency of type LA supernova during the early universe and gleans insight into the mechanisms that denoted them. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:40 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. If we look into the early universe and measure a drop in the number of supernovae, then it could be that it takes a long time to make a type LA supernova. Like corn kernels in a pan waiting for the oil to heat up, the stars haven't had enough time at that approach to evolve to the point of explosion. However, if supernovae form very quickly, like microwave popcorn, then they will be immediately visible, and we'll find many of them. Even when the universe was very young, each supernova is unique, so it is possible that there are multiple ways to make a supernova. And today is Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, January 13, 2012, 4:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. If astronomers discover that type LA supernova begin to depart from how they expect them to look, they might be able to gauge those changes and make the measurements of dark energy more precise. And today is Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Saturday, January 7, 2012, 4:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Flatworm Flower's fundamental rule of biology: worm regenerates without centrosome, a structure long thought necessary for cell division. Science Daily, January 5, 2012. Reporting in the journal Science Research at the University of California, San Francisco, UCSF, Sauer's Institute for Medical Research in Kansas City, MO, have discovered that the worm lacks a key cellular structure called a centrosome, which scientists have considered essential for cell division. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Saturday, January 7, 2012, 4:53 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Every animal ever examined, from the mightiest mammals to the lowliest insects, has 3 centrosomes in their cells. This is the first time we've found one that didn't. The fact that the flatworms lack these centrosomes calls into question their purpose. Clearly, we have to rethink what centrosomes are actually doing. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 4:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The necessity of even division, a central component of all multicellular life, is the ability of cells to divide, and divide evenly. Before a cell divides, it has to assemble two exact copies of its DNA, and then make sure that the DNA sorts evenly into the two separate hulls as they pinch out. Many health problems arise from cells losing this ability. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 4:59 a.m. Eastern Time. A hallmark of cancer, for instance, involves abnormalities in the division. Tumor cells often duplicate extra pieces of DNA. Certain forms of childhood mental retardation are also remarked by abnormal divisions, which cause the loss of large pieces of DNA, leading to developmental problems in certain brain structures. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Centrosomes have been seen as animals' ultimate evolutionary fix for this problem. Plants and fungi don't have them, but animals have had centrosomes in their cells. As long as there have been animals, these structures were thought to play a central role in cell division, laying down track-like spindles onto which the cells sort their dividing DNA. Centrosomes were seen as so important to cell division that all animals were assumed to have them. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:06 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Worm regenerates without centrosomes, with a charming name that masks an otherwise humble appearance. This worm is a puddle wiggler, just a few millimeters long at most. But its remarkable regenerative ability has made a great scientific curiosity. When cut into tiny pieces, every piece will grow into a perfectly normal worm in a matter of days. Each offspring can then be segmented over and over again as well. It is how the worm reproduces. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Together they manipulated the flatworm to knock out genes needed to assemble these centrosomes. Without centrosomes, the worm should have lost their ability to regenerate normally, or so they thought. They were amazed to find that losing these structures didn't affect the worm's ability to regenerate at all. They then looked more carefully at the worms and discovered that they never had these centrosomes in the first place. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It came as a surprise to all of us. What it means, he said, is that the evolutionary pressure that has maintained these structures in nearly all animals may have very little to do with cell division itself. There may be another function for centrosomes that is still obscured. Today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:16 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Now you see it, now you didn't. Researchers cloak a moment in time. Science Daily, January 6, 2012. Think Harry Potter movie magic? Coronal researchers have demonstrated a temporal cloak, albeit on a very small scale, and the transport of information by a beam of light. And good day, this Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:16 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The trick is to create a gap in the beam of light, have the hidden event occur as the gap goes by, and then stitch the beam back together. And good day, Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A laser beam passes through a split-time lens, a specially designed waveguide that bumps up the wavelength for a while, then suddenly bumps it down. The signal then passes through a filter that slows down the higher wavelength part of the signal, creating a gap in which the cloaked event takes place. A second filter works in the opposite way from the first, letting the lower wavelength catch up, and the final split lens brings the beam back to the original wavelength, leaving no trace of what happened during the gap. And good day, it's Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:27 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers created what they call a time lens, which can manipulate and focus signals in time, analogous to the way a glass lens focuses light in space. They use a technique called four-wave mixing, in which two beams of light, a signal, and a pump are sent together through an optical fiber. The wave beams interact and change the wavelength of a signal. To begin creating a time gap, the researchers first bump the wavelength of the signal up, then by flipping the wavelength of the pump beam, bump it down. And good day, Dr. Will CBMD PhD case, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:29 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The beam then passes through another very long stretch of optical fiber. Light passing through a transparent material is slowed down just a bit, and how much it is slowed varies with the wavelength. So the lower wavelength pulls ahead of the higher, leaving a gap, like the hare pulling ahead of the tortoise. During the gap, the experiments introduced a brief flash of light at a still higher wavelength that would cause a glitch and the beam coming out the other end. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Note, and the split beam passes through a more optical fiber with a different composition engineered to slow lower wavelengths more than higher. The higher wavelength signal now catches up with the lower, closing the gap. The here is plodding through mud, but the tortoise is good at that and catches up. Finally, another 4-wave mixer brings both parts back to the original wavelength, and the beam emerges with no trace that there was ever a gap and no evidence of the intruding signal. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Note, none of this will let you steal the crown jewels without anyone noticing. The gap created in the experiment was 15 picoseconds long and might be increased up to 10 nanoseconds. But the technique could have applications in fiber optic data transmission and data processing. For example, it might allow inserting an emergency signal without interrupting the main data stream, or multitasking operations in a photonic computer, where light beams on a chip replace wires. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:42 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Down to the wire for silicon, researchers create a wire 4 atoms wide, 1 atom tall. Science Daily, January 5, 2012. The smallest wires ever developed in silicon, just 1 atom tall, and 4 atoms wide, have been shown by a team of researchers from the University of New South Wales, Melbourne, University of Purdue, University to have the same current carrying capability as copper wires. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Experiments in atom-by-atom supercomputer models of the wires have found that the wires maintain a low capacity for resistance despite being more than 20 times thinner than conventional copper wires in microprocessors. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. For engineers, it could provide a roadmap to future nanoscale computational devices where atomic sizes are at the end of Moore's law. The theory shows that a single dense row of phosphorus atoms embedded in silicon will be the ultimate limit of downscaling. For computer scientists, it places donor atom-based silicon quantum computing closer to realization. And for physicists, the results show that Ohm's law, which demonstrates the relationship between electrical current, resistance, and voltage, continues to apply all the way down to an atomic scale wire. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:49 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The paper's lead author, the graduate student in the Center of Excellence for Quantum Computation and Communication Technology at the University of New South Wales. It's extraordinary to show that the Ohm's law, such as basic law, still holds even when constructing a wire from the fundamental building blocks of nature. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:53 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The innovation of the Australian group was to build the circuits atom by atom instead of the current method of building microprocessors in which material is stripped away. Typically, we chip or etch material away, which can be very expensive, difficult, and inaccurate. Once you get to 20 atoms wide, you have atomic fluctuations that make scaling difficult. But this experimental group built devices by placing atomically thin layers of phosphorus in silicon and found that with densely doped phosphorus wires just 4 atoms wide, it acts like a wire that conducts just as well as metal. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The goal of the research is to develop future quantum computers in which single atoms are used for the computation. Director of the Center of Excellence for Quantum Computation and Communication Technology at University of New South Wales and the project's principal investigator. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We are on the threshold of making transistors out of individual atoms. But to build a practical quantum computer, we have recognized that the interconnecting wiring and circuitry also needs to shrink to the atomic scale. Good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The metallic wire is in principle quite difficult to be scaled into 1 to 2 nanometers pitch, but in both experimental and modeling views, the research result is quite remarkable. For the first time, it demonstrates the possibility that densely doping wire is a viable alternative for the next-generation ultra-scale metallic interconnect in silicon chips. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 5:59 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, having the throughput capability for a highly scalable code is important for doing that, and we have the capability here at Purdue. We ran hundreds of cases to understand the potential landscape of these devices, so this was computationally intensive work. Today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today, Saturday, January 7, 2012, 6:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This is an exciting collaboration. We were doing simulations of experimental work, which was based on a theoretical model. So we were bringing the three legs of modern science together in one project. Plus our graduate students are able to stay in contact and work with each other, despite working in various locations around the world. It is hard to think of a better example of how science is done today. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Hybrid silkworm spin stronger spider silk. Science Daily, January 6, 2012. Research was published this week showing that silk produced by transgenically engineered silkworms in the laboratory, Professor of Biological Science, University of Notre Dame, exhibits the highly sought-after strength and elastic of spider silk. The stronger silk could possibly be used to make sutures, artificial limbs, and parachutes. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The findings were published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and heightened for their breakthrough in the long search for silk with such mechanical properties. The manuscript was published after an in-depth peer review process and was deemed by the publishers as a newsworthy article of this issue in which it appears, further indicating its relative importance to science and technology. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:24 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It is something nobody has done before. The project, which used Fraser piggyback vectors to create transgenic silkworms with both silkworm and spider silk proteins, was a collaboration at his laboratory with Donald. Fraser's lab made the transgenic silkworms, and Lewis' lab analyzed the fibers from silkworms. Results showed that the fibers were tougher than typical silkworm silk and as tough as drag-line silk fibers produced by spiders, demonstrating that silkworms can be engineered to produce such improved fibers. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:27 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Commercial production of spider silk from spiders is impractical because spiders are too cannibalistic and terrestrial for farming. Researchers have experimented with producing the stronger material in other organisms, including bacteria, insects, mammals, and plants, but those proteins require mechanical spinning. A test the silkworms perform naturally, the stronger fiber could find application in sutures, whereas some natural silkworm silk is used as well as wound dressing, artificial ligaments, tendons, tissues, scaffolds, microcapsules, cosmetics, and textiles. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. His Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:32 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Whiff of love hormone helps monkeys show a little kindness. Science Daily, January 5, 2012. Oxytocin, the love hormone that builds mother-baby bonds and may help us feel more connected toward one another, can also make surely monkeys treat each other a little more kindly. And good day, Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:33 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Administering the hormone nasally through a kid-sized nebulizer. Like a gas mask, a Duke University research team has shown that it can make rhesus monkeys pay more attention to each other and make choices that give another monkey a squirt of fruit juice, even when they don't get one themselves. And good day, Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Two macaques were seated next to each other and trained to select symbols from a screen that represented giving a rewarding squirt of juice to oneself, giving juice to the neighbor, or not handing out any juice at all. In repeated trials, they were faced with a choice between just two of these options at a time. Reward to self versus no reward, reward to self versus reward to other, and reward to other versus no reward. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:39 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The inhaled oxytocin enhanced pro-social choices by the monkeys, perhaps by making them pay more attention to the other individual. If that's true, it is really cool because it suggests that oxytocin breaks down normal social barriers. And good day, Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:41 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Either work by Pat's group has shown that macaques would rather give a reward to another monkey when the alternative is no reward for anyone, a concept they call vicarious reinforcement. Their data in the latest study show an apparent improvement in vicarious reinforcement about a half hour after exposure to oxytocin. Interestingly, for the first half hour, the monkey was more likely to reward itself. And today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers also tracked the monkey's eye movements. Typically, after making a pro-social choice, they will shift their gaze to the other monkey. Under the influence of oxytocin, the gaze lingered a bit more when they made other verses. Neither choices. The hormone is currently being evaluated as a therapy for autism, schizophrenia, and other disorders that are marked by an apparent lack of interest or caring about others. It seems to give patients increased trust and better social skills, but not much is known about how that process works or whether the effects would be consistent over the long term. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Sunday, January 8, 2012, 5:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The study may help establish monkey as a good behavioral and pharmacological model for understanding oxytocin therapy. The nebulizer mask used in these tests is also more pleasant than the sprays now being used on humans. We were able to make the inhalation very tolerable by using the pediatric nebulizer. This may be much better for treating young children with autism or related disorders than the typical nasal spray, which can be uncomfortable. It may deliver the hormone more effectively. The researchers were also able to determine for the first time the nasally administered oxytocin actually traveled into the brain. Understanding how oxytocin works in the brain, where the site of action is, and the long-term consequences of treatment can't be done in humans. And the rodent models are too distant behaviorally and neurologically to provide much insight. And today is Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Sunday, January 8, 2012. It is 9:53 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Just a little weather experiment, rocket experiments causing clouds in the weather atmosphere. Is the elements used are sodium, other substances begin to be used, such as lithium, potassium, cesium, barium oxide, europium, titanium, tetrachloride, and trimethyl aluminum, which are capable of creating neutral and even ionized clouds. And soon a new type of artificial cloud appeared. Smoke clouds formed at stratospheric and mesospheric altitudes due to the rapid combustion of certain chemical active substances in the atmosphere, with the substance formation of a cloud of submicron particles which are good reflectors of solar radiation. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Graphene reveals its magnetic personality. Science Daily, January 8, 2012. In a report published in Nature Physics, they used graphene, the world's thinnest and strongest material, and made it magnetic. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:14 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Graphene is a sheet of carbon atoms arranged in a chicken wire structure. In its pristine state, it exhibits no signs of the conventional magnetism usually associated with such materials as iron or nickel. Demonstrating its remarkable properties, won Manchester researchers Nobel Prize Physics in 2010. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:16 a.m. Eastern Time. But no, the Manchester research took non-magnetic graphene and then either peppered it with other non-magnetic atoms like fluorine or removed some carbon atoms from the chicken wire. The empty spaces called vaccines and added atoms all turned out to be magnetic, exactly like atoms of, for example, iron. It is like minus multiplied by minus gives you plus. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time. Note. The researchers found that to behave as magnetic atoms, defects must be far away from each other, and their concentration should be low. If many defects are added to graphene, they reside too close and cancel each other's magnetism. In the case of vaccines, their high concentration makes graphene disintegrate. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The observed magnetism is tiny, and even the most magnetized graphene samples would not stick to your fridge. However, it is important to reach clarity in what is possible for graphene and what is not. The area of magnetism in the non-magnetic materials has previously had many false positives. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:19 a.m. Eastern Time. Note. The most likely use of the found phenomenon in spintronics. Spintronics devices are pervasive. Most notably, they can be found in computers' hard disks. They function due to coupling of magnetism and electric current. Adding this new degree of functionality can prove important for potential applications of graphene in electronics. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9th, 2012, 6:52 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Hatcheries change salmon genetics after a single generation. Science Daily, December 19, 2011. The impact of hatcheries on salmonids is so profound that in just one generation, traits are selected that allow fish to survive and prosper in the hatchery environment, at the cost of their ability to thrive and reproduce in a wild environment. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 6:53 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The findings published this week in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences show a speed of evolution and natural selection that surprised researchers. They confirm that the primary impact of hatcheries is a change in fish genetics as opposed to a temporary environmental effect. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 6:56 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We've known for some time that hatchery-born fish are less successful at survival and reproduction in the wild. However, until now it wasn't clear why. What this study shows is that intense evolutionary pressures in the hatchery rapidly selected for fish that excel there at the expense of their reproductive success in the wild. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9th, 2012, 6:57 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Hatcheries are efficient at producing fish for harvest, the researchers said, but this and other studies continue to raise concerns about the genetic impacts that hatchery fish may have when they interbreed with wild salmon and steelhead, and whether or not they will help wild salmon runs to recover. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 6:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. These findings were based on a 19-year-old genetic analysis of steelhead in Origins Hood River. It examined why hatchery fish struggle to reproduce in wild river conditions, a fact that has been made clear in previous research. Some of the possible causes explored were environmental effects of captive rearing, interbreeding among close relatives, and unintentional domestication selection, or the ability of some fish to adapt to the unique hatchery environment. This study confirmed that domestication selection was at work. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:08 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. When thousands of smolts are born in the artificial environment of a hatchery, those that survive best are the ones that can deal, for whatever reason, with hatchery conditions, but the same traits that help them in the hatchery backfire when they return to a wild river, where their ability to produce surviving offspring is much reduced. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:09 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We expected to see some of these changes after multiple generations. An OSU postdoctoral research associate and lead author on the study. To see these changes happen in a single generation was amazing. Evolutionary change doesn't always take thousands of years. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It is not clear exactly what traits are being selected for among those thousands of smolts born in hatcheries, the scientist said. But one of the leading candidates is the ability to tolerate extreme crowding. If research can determine exactly what aspect of hatchery operations is selecting for fish with less fitness in the wild, it could be possible to make changes that would help address the problem. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:26 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Historically, hatchery managers prefer to use fish born in hatcheries as broodstock to create future generations, because whatever trait they had that allowed them to succeed in a hatchery helped produce thousands of apparently healthy young salmon. But they later found that when those same fish were released, they had a survival and reproductive success that was far lower than those born in the wild. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Billions of captive reared salmon are intentionally released into the wild each year in order to increase fishery yields and bolster declining populations. The steelhead studied in this research are, in fact, listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, and part of their recovery plan includes supplementation with hatchery fish. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:28 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It remains to be seen whether results from this one study on steelhead generalize to other hatcheries or salmon species. Nevertheless, this shows that hatcheries can produce fish that are genetically different from wild fish, and that it can happen extraordinarily fast. The challenge now is to identify the traits under selection to see if we can slow that rate of domestication. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:36 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Clearest picture yet of dark matter points the way to better understanding of dark energy. Science Daily, January 9, 2012. Two teams of physicists at the U.S. Department of Energy's Fermi Lab, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, Berkeley Lab, have independently made the largest direct measurements of the invisible scaffolding of the universe, building maps of dark matter using new methods that in turn will remove key hurdles for understanding dark energy with ground-based telescopes. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:39 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The team measurements look for tiny distortions in the images of distant galaxies called cosmic shear, caused by the gravitational influence of massive invisible dark matter. Structures in the foreground accurately mapping out these dark matter structures and their evolution over time is likely to be the most sensitive of the few tools available to physicists in their ongoing effort to understand the mysterious space-stretching effects of dark energy. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9th, 2012, 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Both teams depended upon extensive database of cosmic images collected by Sloan Digital Sky Survey, SDSS, which were compiled in large part with the help of Berkeley Lab and Fermi Lab. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:41 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. These results are very encouraging for future large sky surveys. The images produced led to a picture that sees many more galaxies in the universe and sees those that are 6 times fainter or further back in time than is available from single images. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 7:44 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Several large astronomical surveys, such as the Dark Energy Survey, the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope, and the Hyper Supine Cam Survey, will try to measure cosmic shear in the coming years. Weak lensing distortions are so subtle. However, the same atmospheric effects that cause stars to twinkle at night pose a formidable challenge for cosmic shear measurements. Until now, no ground-based cosmic shear measurement has been able to completely and probably separate weak lensing effects from the atmospheric distortions. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 8:11 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The community has been building towards cosmic shear measurements for a number of years now. An astronomer at Berkeley Lab, but there's also been some skepticism as to whether they can be done accurately enough to constrain dark energy. Showing that we can achieve the required accuracy with these pathfinding studies is important for the next generation of large surveys. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 8:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. To construct dark matter maps, the Berkeley Lab and Fermi Lab teams used images of galaxies collected between 2000 and 2009 by SDSS surveys, 1 and 2 using the Sloan Telescope at Apache Point Observatory, New Mexico. Berkeley Lab also used updated collaborations from SDSS-3, which continues today. The galaxies lie within a continuous ribbon of sky known as SDSS, strip 82 lying along the celestial equator and encompassing 275 square degrees. The galaxy images were captured in multiple passes over many years. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The two teams layered snapshots of a given area taken at different times at a process called co-addition to remove errors caused by the atmospheric effects and to enhance very faint signals coming from distant parts of the universe. The teams used different techniques to model and control for the atmospheric variations and to measure the lensing signal, and have performed an exhaustive series of tests to prove that these models work. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 8:23 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Gravity tends to pull matter together into dense concentrations, but dark energy acts as a repulsive force that slows down the collapse. Thus, the clumsiness of the dark matter maps provides a measurement of the amount of dark energy in the universe. When they compared their final results before the AAS meeting, both teams found somewhat less structure than would have been expected from other measurements, such as the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe WMAP. But the results are not yet different enough from previous experiments to ring any alarm bells. Our image correlation process should prove a valuable tool for the next generation of weak lensing surveys. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:17 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. How does our brain know what is a face and what is not? Science Daily, January 9, 2012. Objects that resemble faces are everywhere. Whether it is a New Hampshire's erstwhile granite, old man of the mountain, or Jesus' face on a tortilla, our brains are adept at locating images that look like faces. However, the normal human brain is almost never fooled into thinking such objects actually are human faces. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Researchers reveal that brain activity that underlies our ability to make that distinction on the left side of the brain, the fusiform gyrus, an area long associated with face recognition, carefully calculates how face-like an image is. The right fusiform gyrus then appears to use that information to make a quick categorological decision of whether the object is indeed a face. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This distribution of labor is one of the first known examples of the left and the right sides of the brain taking on different roles in high-level visual processing tasks, although hemispheric differences have been seen in other brain functions, most notably language and spatial perception. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:23 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Faces versus non-face. Many earlier studies have shown that neurons in the fusiform gyrus located on the brain's underside respond preferentially to faces. Students set out to investigate how that brain region decides what is and is not a face, particularly in cases where an object greatly resembles a face. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. To help them do that, the researchers created a continuum of images ranging from those that look nothing like faces to genuine faces. They found images that very closely resemble faces by examining photographs that machine vision systems had falsely tagged as faces. Human observers then rated how face-like each of the images were by doing a series of one-to-one comparisons. The results of these comparisons allowed the researchers to rank the images by how much they resembled a face. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:28 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The research team then used functional and magnetic resonance imaging fMRI to scan the brains of research objects as they categorized the images. Unexpectedly, the scientists found different activity patterns on each side of the brain. On the right side, activation patterns within the fusiform gyrus remained quite consistent for all genuine face images, but changed dramatically for all non-face images, no matter how much they resembled a face. This suggests that the right side of the brain is involved in making the categorological declaration of whether an image is a face or not. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:33 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Meanwhile, in the analogous region of the left side of the brain, activity patterns changed gradually as images became more face-like, and there was no clear divide between faces and non-faces. From this, the researchers concluded that the left side of the brain is ranking images on the scale of how face-like they are, but not assigning them to one category or another. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9th, 2012, 9:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. From the computational perspective, one speculation one can make is that the left does the initial heavy lifting. It tries to determine how face-like is a pattern without making the final decision on whether I'm going to call it a face. Key to the research was imaging analysis technology that allowed the scientists to look at patterns of activity across the fusiform gyrus. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:36 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This is a relatively recent innovation looking at a pattern of activation as opposed to overall activation. Associate Professor of Psychological and Brain Science at Indiana University, who was not involved in this research. Anytime you have a measure that replicates and correlates with human behavior, that seems to be a pretty compelling story. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD, Hayes, Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:38 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Timing is instructive. The researchers found that the activation in the left side of the fusiform gyrus preceded that of the right side by a couple of seconds, supporting the hypothesis that the left side does its job first and then passes information on to the right side. Researchers, given the sluggishness of fMRI signals which rely on blood flow changes, the timing does not yet constitute definitive evidence, but it is a very interesting possibility because it begins to tease apart this monolithic notion of face processing. It is now beginning to get at what the constituents are of that overall face processing system. And Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 9:41 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers hope to obtain more solid evidence of temporal relationships between the two hemispheres with studies using electroencephalography, EEG, or magnetoencephalography, MEG, two technologies that offer a much more precise view of the timing of brain activity. They also hope to discover how and when the right and left sides of the fusiform gyrus develop these independent functions by studying blind children who have their sight restored at a young age. Many such children have been treated by Project Prakash, and effort initiated by Sinha to find and treat blind children in India. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 11:56 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Who's the boss? Research shows cells influence their own destiny. Science Daily, January 5, 2012, in a major shakeup of scientists' understanding of what determines the fate of cells. Researchers at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute have shown that cells have some control over their own destiny. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Monday, January 9, 2012, 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time. Book note. The researchers from the Institute's Immunology Division drew their conclusion after studying B cells, immune system cells that can make antibodies. B cells can have multiple fates. Some of the more common fates are to die, divide, become an antibody-secreting cell, or change what antibody they make. This all happens while the cells are proliferating in the lymph nodes. The commonly held view is that a cell's fate is determined by external cues, such as the presence of particular hormones or cell signaling molecules. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2012, 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Researchers predicted that the cell fates are, to a large extent, determined by internal processes. To test their theory, the research team recreated the conditions required for B cells to develop into the different cell types, and then filmed the cells, working with Dr. John, National Information and Communication Technology Australia, to develop a new technology and image analysis methods. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The research team's experimental observations were further enhanced by the expertise of mathematician Dr. Ken Duffy from the Hamilton Institute at the National University of Ireland, Maynooth. Dr. Duffy, understanding the probabilities, was critical for the team to interpret the behavior of the 2,500 cells that were filmed. The team's research findings have been just published in the Journal of Science. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Professor Hodgkin said the cells behaved as though there were internal machines that govern the cell's fates. Each of these internal machines is like a little clock, or timer for division, death, and what type of antibody they make, and whether they become antibody-secreting cells. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 12:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Dr. Drowling explains it was the different fate outcomes being a competition. Each cell will, in some sense, set up a clock that starts ticking for each of the outcomes, and whatever clock goes off first is the division that the cell makes. The cell is trying to do everything, but only one fate wins. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2012, 12:16 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Professor Hodgkin said even though the cells were getting the same external signals, there was still considerable variation in what happened to the cell population. A reliable proportion of the B cells would end up with each of the different fates. This suggests that external factors such as hormones or cell signaling molecules were not telling the cells what to do, but were altering the probability of what the cells were going to do anyway. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 12:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Book note. When the body is responding to an infection, many immune cell types, each with a different function, are produced. Dr. Dowling said it could be that the body was tweaking the odds of producing particular cell types depending on the situation. The body produces many different hormones and cell signaling proteins, so the odds will be different for different infections. A whole lot of molecules involved in the immune system will affect those odds. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time. Book note. Professor Hodgkin said the hope now was to create mathematical models that accurately predict how external signals will alter the probability of what an immune cell population will do. The development of such models would help in the design of new immune therapies for autoimmune diseases and improved vaccines. And good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2012, 6:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Proton therapy, effective prostate cancer treatment study suggests. Science Daily, January 5, 2012. Proton therapy, a type of external beam radiation therapy, is a safe and effective treatment for prostate cancer. According to new studies published in the journal January issue of the International Journal of Radiation Oncology Biology Physics, Red Journal, the American Society of Radiation Oncology's Astro Official Scientific Journal. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 6:59 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the diverse study researchers at the University of Florida and Jacksonville, Florida, respectively studied 211 men with low, intermediate, and high risk prostate cancer. The men were treated with proton therapy, a specialized type of external beam radiation therapy that uses protons instead of X-rays. After a 2-year follow-up, the research team, led by Nancy Mendenhall, MD, the University of Florida Proton Therapy Institute, reported that the treatment was effective and that the gastrointestinal and genitorial side effects were generally minimal. Today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 7:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: researchers performed a case-match analysis comparing high-dose external beam radiation therapy using a combination of photons, X-rays, and protons with brachytherapy radioactive seed implants. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 7:06 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: over the 3-year, 196 patients received the external beam treatments. Their data was compared to 203 men of similar stages who received a brachytherapy over the same time period. Researchers then compared the biochemical failure rates, a statistical measure of whether the cancer relapses, and determined that men who received the photon therapy had the same rate of recurrence as the men who received brachytherapy. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Tuesday, January 10, 2012, 7:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: for men with prostate cancer, brachytherapy, external beam radiation therapy using photons and protons are both highly effective treatments with similar relapse rates. Based on this data, it is our belief that men with prostate cancer can reasonably choose either treatment for localized prostate cancer based on their own concerns about quality of life without fearing they are compromising their chance for a cure. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: astronomers reach new frontiers of dark matter. Science Daily, January 9, 2012. Astronomers have mapped dark matter on the largest scale ever observed. New findings reveal a universe comprising an intricate cosmic web of dark matter and galaxies spanning more than 1 billion light years. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: an international team of researchers achieved their results by analyzing images of about 10 million galaxies in 4 different regions of the sky. They studied the distortion of the light emitted from these galaxies, which is bent as it passes massive clumps of dark matter during its journey to Earth. And good day's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: their project, known as the Canada-France-Hawaii Telescope Lensing Survey, CFHT Lens S, uses data from the Canada-France-Hawaii Telescope Legacy Survey. This accumulated images over the 5 years using the wide field imaging camera MegaCam, a 1 degree by 1 degree field of view, 340 megapixel camera on the CFHT in Hawaii. Galaxies included in the survey are typically 6 billion light years away. The light captured by the images used in the study was emitted when the universe was 6 billion years old, roughly half the age it is today. Good day's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:20 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the team's result has been suspected for a long time from studies based on computer simulations, but was difficult to verify owing to the invisible nature of dark matter. This is the first direct glimpse of dark matter on large scale, showing the cosmic web in all directions. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:21 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the dark matter map we have produced looks back over 75% of the age of the universe to a time when it was very different to today. By tracking the evolution of the universe over cosmic time, the team will investigate how dark energy has come to dominate the present-day universe. And today's Dr. Will CBMD PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:22 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: over the next few months, we will be using this data to map the evolution of the expansion of the universe and learn about dark energy. which is causing the expansion of the universe to accelerate. We will test theories of gravity itself to determine if Einstein's general relativity is correct or not. We will also use it to determine the properties of neutrinos, ghostly particles, that interact with normal matter only very weakly. Today's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Members of small monkey groups more likely to fight for their group. Science Daily, December 27, 2011. Small monkey groups may win terrestrial disputes against larger groups because some members of the larger invading groups avoid aggressive encounters. In a new report published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, Research Institute of Panama, Max Planck Institute of Ornithology show that individual monkeys that don't participate in conflicts prevent large groups from achieving their competitive potential. And good day, it's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:39 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The authors use recorded vocalizations to simulate terrestrial invasions into the ranges of wild white-faced capuchin monkey groups at the Smithson Research Station on Barrow, Colorado Island in Panama. Monkeys responded more vigorously to terrestrial challenges near the center of their territories and were more likely to flee in encounters near the borders. And good day, it's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:40 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Defection by members of larger groups was more common than defection by members of smaller groups. Groups that outnumbered their opponents could convert their numerical superiority to a competitive advantage when defending the center of their own range against neighboring intruders, but failed to do so when they attempted to invade the ranges of their neighbors because more individuals in large groups chose not to participate. According to the authors, these behavior patterns even the balance of power among groups and create a home field advantage, which may explain how large and small groups are able to coexist. And today is Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Could Siberia volcanism have caused the Earth's largest extinction event? Science Daily, January 9, 2012. Around 250 million years ago, at the end of the Permian geological period, there was a mass extinction so severe that it remains the most traumatic known species die off in Earth's history, although the cause of this event is a mystery. It has been speculated that the eruption of a large swath of volcanic rock in Russia, called the Siberia Traps, was a trigger for the extinction. And good day, it's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:48 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The end of the Permian mass extinction saw the sudden loss of more than 90% of marine species and more than 70% of terrestrial species. The fossil record suggests that ecological diversity did not fully recover until several million years after the main pulse of the extinction. This suggests that environmental conditions remained inhospitable for an extended period of time. And good day, it's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Volcanic activity in the Siberia Traps has been proposed as one of the mechanisms that may have triggered the mass extinction. Gases released as a result of Siberian magnetism could have caused environmental damage. For example, perhaps sulfur particles in the atmosphere reflected the sun's heat back into space, cooling the planet, or maybe chlorine and other chemical similar non-metal elements called halogens significantly damaged the ozone layer in the stratosphere. And good day, it's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:53 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The geological of Siberia Traps is composed of flood basalts, which form when giant lava eruptions coat large swaths of land or ocean floor with basalt lava. The lava hardens into rock formations. The team investigated concentrations of sulfur, chlorine, and fluorine, another halogen, that were dissolved in tiny samples of ancient magma found within basalt samples from Siberia Traps. These small frozen droplets, which preserve a record of volcanic gases from the time of the eruption 250 million years ago, are called melt inclusions. And good day, it's Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Sulfur, chlorine, and fluorine gases could have been released into the atmosphere from eruptions spewing out of large fissures, which is common in basalt flood formation, and plumes escaping from these cracks could have reached the stratosphere. Sulfur, chlorine, and fluorine made it to the upper atmosphere. These gases could have caused a wide area of adverse climate events, including stratosphere and temperature change and acid rain. And today is Dr. Will C. BMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 1:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Based on their findings, the team estimated that between 6,300 and 7,800 gigatons of sulfur, between 3,400 and 8,700 gigatons of chlorine, and between 7,100 and 13,700 gigatons of fluorine were released from the magma in the Siberia traps during the end of the Permian period. They say more research on atmospheric chemistry and climate modeling is urgently needed to determine whether these gases could have been responsible for the mass extinction. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Farthest developing galaxy cluster ever found. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. In a random sky survey made in near-infrared light, Hubble found 5 tiny galaxies clustered together 13.1 billion light-years away. They are among the brightest galaxies at the approach and very young, existing just 600 million years after the Big Bang. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Galaxy clusters are the largest structures in the universe, comprising hundreds of thousands of galaxies bound together by gravity. The developing cluster, or protocluster, is seen as it looked 13 billion years ago. Presumably it has grown into one of today's massive galactic cities, comparable to the nearby Virgo cluster of more than 2,000 galaxies. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. These galaxies formed during the earliest stages of galaxy assembly when galaxies had just started to cluster together. Astronomy at the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. The result confirms our theoretical understanding of the buildup of galaxy clusters, and Hubble is just powerful enough to find the first examples of them at this distance. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:04 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The study presented the results January 10th at the American Astronomical Society meeting in Austin, Texas. The study will be published in an upcoming issue of the Astrophysical Journal. Most galaxies in the universe reside in groups and clusters, and astronomers have probed many mature galactic cities in detail as far as 11 billion light-years away. Finding clusters in the earliest phase of construction has been challenging because they are rare, dim, and widely scattered across the sky. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We need to look in many different areas because the odds of finding something this rare are very small. Use Hubble Sharp Eye Wide Field Camera 3, WFC3, to pinpoint the cluster galaxies. The search is hit and miss. Typically a region has nothing, but if we hit the right spot, we can find multiple galaxies. Today is Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Hubble's observations demonstrate the progressive buildup of galaxies. They also provide further support for the hierarchical model galaxy assembly, in which small objects accrete mass or merge to form bigger objects over a smooth and steady but dramatic process of collision and collection. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Because the distant fledgling clusters are so dim, the team hunted for the system's brightest galaxies. These galaxies act as billboards advertising cluster construction zones. From computer simulations, the astronomers expect galaxies at early approach to be clustered together. Because brightness correlates with mass, the most luminous galaxies pinpoint the location of developing clusters. These powerful light beacons live in deep wells of dark matter, an invisible form of matter that makes up the underlying gravitational scaffolding for construction. The team expects many fainter galaxies that were not seen in these observations to inhabit the same neighborhood. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:12 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The 5 bright galaxies spotted by Hubble are about 1/2 to 1/10 the size of our Milky Way. They are comparable in brightness. The galaxies are bright and massive because they are being fed large amounts of gas through mergers with other galaxies. The team simulations show that the galaxies eventually will merge and form the brightest central galaxy, and the cluster a giant elliptical similar to the Virgo cluster M87. Good day, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The observations are part of the brightest of reionizing galaxy survey, which used Hubble WFC3 to search for the brightest galaxies around 13 billion years ago, when light from the first stars burned off a fog of cold hydrogen in a process called reionization. Today is Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:16 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The team estimated the distance to newly found galaxies based on their colors. But the astronomers plan to follow up with spectroscopic observations which measure the expansion of space. Those observations will help astronomers precisely calculate the cluster distance and yield the velocities of the galaxies, which will show whether they are gravitationally bound to each other. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:25 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Comprehensive picture of the fate of oil and Deepwater Horizon spill. Science Daily, January 10, 2012. A new study provides a composite picture of the environmental distribution of oil and gas from the 2010 Deepwater Horizon spill in the Gulf of Mexico. It amasses a vast collection of available atmospheric surface and subsurface chemical data to assemble a mass balance of how much oil and gas was released, where it went, and the chemical makeup of the compounds that remained in the air, on the surface and in the deep water. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:27 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The lead author, NOAA research chemist Thomas Ryerson, assembled an all-star team of 14 scientists from diverse backgrounds and organizations, including academic, private, research institutions, and federal labs, all who played important roles in collecting and analyzing data during the spill. 4 scientists from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution were integral to the paper Environmental Engineer. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This is a study based on data from a Gulf and not on models, and it tells the big picture of the spill, just 18 months after the leak was kept, a remarkably short amount of time. Further emphasized the importance of the array of scientists Ryerson assembled to help the start. He brought together key players to analyze relatively new data that came from an impressive array of sampling techniques. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today's Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In addition to hydrocarbon data Ryerson collected from overflights on NOAA P3 planes and other air samples from research vessels, and the paper incorporates data collected by a remotely operated vehicle, ROV, using a unique device developed by Seawall to sample the leaking fluid at the well, as well as data from the WHOI designed and built autonomous underwater vehicle Sentry, outfitted with the miniaturized mass spectrometer developed by Camilla. Additionally, it uses many water samples from various depths taken and analyzed by the university, others using finely tuned analytical instruments and techniques to track minute amounts of the oil and gas components. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. When combined, the data tell a story about the fate of the oil and gas in the air, on the surface and in the ocean, and enabled a new chemistry-based spill rate estimate of an average of 11,130 tons of gas and oil compounds per day, close to the official average leak rate estimated of about 11,350 tons of gas and oil per day, equal to about 59,200 barrels of liquid oil per day. In total, approximately 4.2 million barrels of oil were released from the well. And today's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Ryerson and his colleagues determined that the visible surface slick represented about 15% of total leak gas, and oil, the airborne plum, accounted for about another 7%. About 36% remained in an underwater plum of droplets about 3,300 and 4,300 feet below the surface, and 17% was recovered directly at the surface through a marine riser. The location of a balance about 25% of the total is not directly accounted for by the chemical data. And good day, Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Today is Wednesday, January 11, 2012, 2:40 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick now. The chemical composition of oil and gas in each of these locations was very different. The underwater plum was enhanced in gases known to dissolve readily in water. The team found this included essentially all of the lightweight methane, natural gas, and benzene present in the spilling reservoir fluid. The surface oil slick was dominated by the heaviest and stickiest components, which neither dissolved in seawater nor evaporated into the air. And the airborne plum of chemicals contained a wide mixture of intermediate weight components of the spilled gas and oil.